Lights, camera, action.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey everyone.
Today we are going to be covering the Lego Movie. So before we go any further in the video, if you are listening to us on YouTube right now, we're going to ask that you go ahead and smash that like button. It goes a really long way in helping us get discovered by new users and promoting our video. So if you are watching, please go ahead and give us a like. I know there are a lot of people that watch or listen that don't like it because I can see the views and I see how many people like it. And I'm just asking, please like the video. But anyways, we appreciate you guys. We love doing this, and we've seen a spike in our Spotify followers and also some new 5-star reviews. So thank you for those. We really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's dive right in. Em, you have some fun facts for us?
Well, I'm going to start with introductory details, but yes, then I have fun facts.
Okay.
So, the Lego Movie was released on February 7th of 2014. It was directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. It is starring the voices of Chris Pratt, Will Ferrell, Will Arnett, Elizabeth Banks, and Morgan Freeman. It was distributed by Warner Bros. Pictures. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 35 minutes. It is rated PG. It had a budget of $60 million and box office total was $468.1 million.
I'm sorry, what'd you say the budget was?
$60 million.
$60 million? Are you kidding me?
No. So
Wow.
Really not
An incredibly small budget.
not a big budget,
Super
yeah.
small budget. Wow, that's super impressive.
I agree, especially considering, I'm sure you'll touch on this in a second, but just all of the work that went into this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do have just like a smaller casting detail that I wanted to share. Robert Downey Jr. was actually considered for the role of Emmett.
Really?
Yes. And Emma Stone was considered for Wild Style.
Did it say why they turned them down?
It didn't. It didn't even say if they were approached. It just said that they were considered for it. So.
I gotcha.
So Mark, I might say this last name wrong, Mothersbaugh, wrote the score for the movie, and he actually was the original composer, or the main composer on the Rugrats.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
I thought so too.
That's hilarious, which, I wouldn't really say that the Lego Movie has a score that I think about
Right.
a lot, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's a good score in the movie, and that's hilarious that he was a composer for the Rugrats.
Yeah. Next. This one I don't completely understand, so John, maybe you'll be able to help me understand. But
Okay.
the directors had planned to have R2-D2 be in the movie, in the scene when the
Millennium Falcon shows
up, and
yeah.
You see C-3PO, you see what's his name?
Han Solo.
Yeah,
and Lando.
Yeah. So
And Chewbacca.
So it said that they couldn't have R2-D2 because of some battle for the rights of him, but I didn't understand why they could have all these other Star Wars characters, but they couldn't have R2-D2. Do you know why?
So I don't know exactly why in that circumstance, but I know that the Star Wars characters being included in the movie was like a really big long shot, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So originally, when this movie was first in production, Lucasfilm was independent. So Lucasfilm was obviously founded by George Lucas, and it was created for Star Wars, which Lucasfilm owns Star Wars because George Lucas created Star Wars. Well, while the movie was in production, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I just got that backwards, they approached Lucasfilm about having Star Wars in the movie because Lego owned the licensing rights to Lego Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to include them in there, and Lucasfilm gave their blessing. Well, before the movie was released, Disney purchased Lucasfilm. So that created a whole new kind of set of issues, I guess, for licensing of intellectual property because the transfer of ownership changed from Lucasfilm to Disney essentially. Like Lucasfilm still was an entity that owned Star Wars, but they got new parents, so to speak, when they used to not have any. So I don't know specifically like what R2-D2 had to do with it, but I know that it was looking bleak during the movie of them actually being included, even though they originally had permission.
Gotcha.
So my guess would be that it had something to do with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. But they were able to get Anthony Daniels, who is the guy that voices C-3PO. So that's
and
pretty cool.
they got Billy D. Williams to reprise the role of Lando Calrissian.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yep. So he voiced him too. Harrison Ford did not voice Han Solo in the movie. They got an impersonator to do that. But C-3PO and Lando were voiced by their original actors.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So after the film was released, Lego sales went up by 15%. They sold 62 billion Lego pieces that year.
Wow.
So that would equate to about 102 Lego pieces for every single person in on the planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, seriously. Now that's like just literally individual Lego pieces, but that's still a lot.
That's a lot.
So the gag, "Honey, where are my pants?"
Yes.
was, did you already know this?
No.
What I'm going to say? Okay.
No.
It was a parody from How I Met Your Mother because Phil Lord and Chris Miller were writers and producers for the first season of that show.
Okay, I did know that they worked on that show because I loved that show when I was in college. So what's the connection?
Well, see, I was trying to look it up, and for some reason, my internet was not working.
Oh no!
But I think it was when Marshall like goes to work and Lily has to bring him his pants.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I'm pretty sure.
That's hilarious.
That's the only thing I could think of from when I've watched the show.
Yeah.
So.
Huh. Okay, cool.
And then another kind of reference to another film is, so the posters in Emmett's room when the movie shows Emmett's room at the beginning.
Yes.
They have posters up that like reference 21 Jump Street.
Oh, really? I never noticed that.
And
that's hilarious.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller directed 21 Jump Street, for those of you who don't know.
And 22 Jump Street.
And 22 Jump Street. But as a result, because they were directors of those movies, Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill both have little cameos in the Lego movie. So
with Channing Tatum playing Superman and Jonah Hill playing Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because like they're not necessarily true to their depiction in comics or other movies. I guess Superman's kind of close, but just like Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill have such like a great on-screen chemistry. They're very funny together, and we're not necessarily recommending that you go and watch 21, 22 Jump Street. There is a lot of language in those movies. However,
and they're just inappropriate.
And they are definitely inappropriate, but they are comedically genius, I would say. They're very funny. So it's funny to see them kind of having that dynamic again in this movie.
Yeah.
Especially going into it for the first time. I remember seeing this movie in theaters with my dad, and it was just like, oh, what?
Yeah.
You know?
So this next fact kind of blew my mind. But I researched before I watched the movie. So as I was watching, I was kind of listening for it, and it's true. The word Lego is not said once in the entire movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I know. But so since I researched ahead of time, when we watched it the other night, I was listening. I was like, there's no way. But it's true. It is not spoken once.
That's wild.
I know.
But, I mean, I don't know that they really have any reason to.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. I mean, the Lego pieces aren't going to say Lego.
Right.
So the only time that I felt like it might happen was in the scene with, like, when Will Ferrell and his son.
Yeah, when they're actually people.
Yeah, and they're in the basement, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought maybe then, but not then either.
Huh. Yep, I did not know that. That's wild.
So my next one is, so Benny the Spaceman.
Yes.
His helmet.
Who's voiced by Charlie Day.
Yes. His helmet is cracked in that certain spot, like by the chin,
Yes.
because Lego's Spaceline products from the 1980s would tend to break in that exact location. So it was just kind of like a callback to that time.
Yeah, so I am a huge Lego nerd, and I'll go into this a little bit later in the episode, but Lego Space was one of their very first actual themes with minifigures, and it was a huge success. People loved it, and part of the reason that it's included in the movie is because I can't remember if it was Phil Lord or Chris Miller. I think it was Chris Miller. Had one of his very first Lego set was a Lego Space set. So,
really?
Yeah, he wanted to include it in there for, nostalgia reasons.
I know that they did ask a lot of like the people who worked on this movie, like what their favorite Lego sets were when they were younger, so they could kind of tie it in here and there.
Well, anyways, one of the most common things that happened at that time, because Lego, the Lego minifigure is a relatively new development for the brand. The brand has been around for over 100 years. And they're highly successful. Lego is literally more valuable than gold. But the Lego minifigure hasn't been around that long. So when they were developing the ABS plastic for those molds, they hadn't figured out the thickness ratio for like the helmet. So almost every single helmet of that, the space system line broke. And like today, to find one that never broke is like unheard of.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So my next one is about Vitruvius. So his line, when he says, "Oh, we got to write all that down because I'm not going to remember any of it, but here we go." I don't remember where he says that, but anyways, it was.
I think he says it at the beginning when he first says the prophecy to Lord Business.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually wasn't scripted. It was only added because Morgan Freeman said it during filming because he was so frustrated with all of the line changes.
Oh, gosh.
And so they just used it.
So that's hilarious. So he was like in the sound booth and said that, and they just kept the audio in there. That is so funny.
Yeah. But I mean, this was Morgan Freeman's first animated movie.
Yeah.
So he said that like a lot of things that he was anticipating like didn't happen. Like he expected to come in and, just be like recording with all of the other characters for each scene, but it wasn't that way. It was, him reading a lot of the lines by himself.
Yeah.
And so it was just like a lot for him, I think.
Yeah. Which I think this is the only voice acting movie he's ever done outside of, I think he appears in the Lego movie too. But it's very weird because you would think that that's the case, but it is almost never the case that the voice actors record together.
I had no idea before this.
It's very uncommon. The only recent example I can think of is for the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. They had all 4 of the turtles record their lines together in the same studio so that they could feed off of each other. And there are a lot of other examples of that, like Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the cartoon. They did that with all the Avengers too. I think the end product is a lot better, but it can kind of be a headache for sound engineers sometimes. So I don't blame them.
Yeah. So my next one is that everything that you see in the movie is 100% Lego bricks. So they wanted it to be this way so that if at any point you pause the movie, you could build what was on the screen. Yeah. So even the scenes with like thousands of buildings, like each building is made of Lego bricks, and like the ones that have like different elements, like when they're like the police Lego men are like shooting at people, like the lights.
Yep.
You can tell that they're made of Lego.
Yep.
The smoke, water, fire, just all of it is Lego.
I actually talk about that a little bit more in the production details.
Okay.
But I think it's really cool, their commitment to the brand in that way.
Yeah. And my last fact is that in the end credits, it features actual stop motion, and John will talk a little bit more about, stop motion versus animation. But it's a 3-minute sequence, and it took 3 full-time animators 2 months to create. So someone decided to sit down and do the math on this, and they said that if you were to create the entire Lego movie in stop motion, it would have taken 10 years and 15 million Lego pieces.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is that 10 years of non-stop shooting?
I would assume so, because they said that, like the 3 full-time animators, it took them 2 months to make that 3-minute stop motion sequence at the end.
Right.
So I would assume it'd be full-time.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Very interesting. What scene was the stop motion? Is it when
It's in the
Emmett
end
is trying
credits.
to... Oh, it's in the end credits?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
I'd be interested to check it out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And that is all I have.
All right, well, let's jump into some production details. So, the Lego movie was released in, did you say 2014?
Yes.
Okay. So, the Lego movie was released in 2014, but development of a Lego movie dates all the way back to 2007. At this time, Warner Brothers Entertainment purchased video game studio Traveler's Tale, also known as TT Games, who holds the exclusive rights to Lego-based video games. So you have like Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones, Lego Batman, all phenomenal games. I've played all of them. I think I've played almost every single Lego game that's been published. I love them. They're great games, and I even got you to play Lego Batman with me one time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's fun, and I'm not a gamer, so
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
She's not a gamer and she loved it. But anywho, after seeing the immense value of Lego-based video games, a couple of Warner Brothers producers began to kick around the idea of a Lego-based movie. And Warner Brothers loved the idea and encouraged producers to pitch the idea to the Lego Group. So shortly thereafter, the two producers flew to the Lego Group's headquarters in Denmark. So for those of you who don't know, Lego is based in Denmark. The creator of Lego, can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he was from Denmark. So that's where they're headquartered. But anywho, so they flew to Denmark and they pitched the idea, and Lego's response was lackluster, to say the least. Lego felt that they had an extremely strong brand already and that the risk of a movie was unnecessary. Thankfully, one person at the Lego Group really liked the idea. Her name is Jill Wilfert, and I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly. But Jill just so happened to be the vice president of Lego's licensing and entertainment. So she really loved the idea, and shortly after, the Lego Group gave their approval to make a Lego-based movie. So by 2010, Chris Miller and Phil Lord signed on to write and direct the film, and Warner Brothers officially greenlit the movie with a planned release date of 2014. By November 2012, Miller and Lord had assembled their full voice cast and began working on what intellectual properties they should include in the movie. So some of those that you do see show up in the movie include Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, DC Comics, Star Wars, and more. One of the funny things about this that I learned was that this included meeting with some of the creators of those intellectual properties or people who were working on films that related to those intellectual properties. So, for example, Miller and Lord had to meet with Christopher Nolan to discuss their depiction of Batman in the Lego movie because at the time, Chris Nolan was directing The Dark Knight Rises.
Huh, that's crazy.
Super crazy. They also met with Zack Snyder for their depiction of Superman because Zack was directing Man of Steel and so on and so forth. But I think it's hilarious to think about these two guys having a meeting, sitting down with Chris Nolan, who's directing his third installment of a Batman trilogy that's like very gritty, grounded, realistic, and they're showing him this little Lego minifigure depiction of him who wrote a song about being an orphan and it just a very comedic take. I think it's hilarious and I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that meeting.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But anywho, last stop on production details is the animation. So I don't actually have a ton of production details just because this is an animated movie, very different than a live action movie. But what I do have is that the Lego Movie's animation is strongly inspired by brick films. So if you don't know what a brick film is, it is a stop-motion animated short film that is typically produced by Lego fans. Fun fact, because I am such a huge Lego nerd, growing up, I tried to create and produce mini brick films. I had very, very minimal success with doing this, and I eventually gave up.
I don't know if I knew you did that.
Oh yeah, I tried many times just because there were so many people that I looked up to on YouTube who did that, so I wanted to do it too. But I actually ended up resorting to collecting Legos instead, specifically Lego minifigures. But we're not talking about that right now. What we are talking about is Lego's animation being inspired by brick films. There is even a direct reference to one of the most famous Lego brick films. It's called The Magic Portal. It was a movie made by a Lego fan all the way back in 1989. And there's a direct reference to it in the movie. You know the little tube that the boy has that he puts Emmett in, and he like goes back to the Lego world, so to speak?
Yes.
That is called The Magic Portal.
Oh.
Which is the name of one of the most famous Lego films, not because it is like so good. It's actually, if you watch it today, it really does not hold up. But because it was someone who pioneered brick films. They were one of the very first people to do it, and they actually incorporated live action and Lego stop motion in the same movie, very similar to what the Lego movie did at the end, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So anywho, although the animation looks just like brick films, it was done entirely with CGI. Animation studio Animal Logic created the CGI for the film, going to extreme lengths to stay true to the Lego brand. So just some examples of that. First, we have that every CGI Lego minifigure in the movie was animated with the physical limitations of a real Lego minifigure. So, for example, a Lego minifigure's arm can move pretty much 360 degrees vertically, but they cannot move whatsoever horizontally.
Yeah, and they can't like bend their elbow or
right, and their hands,
completely.
like the little C-shaped hands, can only spin. They can't move forward or backwards or anything like that. So every animation that's done in the movie with the characters is done within the limitations of a real Lego minifigure.
That's really cool that they did that. They, tried to keep it as true to life as possible.
I agree. I think it helps reinforce kind of the love for the brand, but it also, I mean, like you were kind of saying earlier, if someone really wanted to do this for real, they could do it. I mean, it might be a ripping out your hair type process, and it would probably take a couple decades, but you could do it for real if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Secondly, Animal Logic put real Lego minifigures under microscopes to view seam lines, dirt, grime, scratches, and the unique plastic texture of Lego, and they then simulated these textures and added them in digitally, which I think is really cool. Because if you look at some of like the Lego produced cartoons and like short films that would tie into like new products that they made, they had a very unique animation style and they did not look realistic in the slightest. So to have this, all that added depth and detail just really reinforces the idea that you could do this for real, which I think is super cool. And then finally, the scenery in the movie, which you already touched on this, but the landscapes, the buildings, the backgrounds were all created in Lego's design software called Lego Digital Design, also known as LDD. What this means is that literally everything you see in the movie can be created with real-life Lego bricks. Nothing was done outside of the limitations of the physical product. So I love this because growing up, I used LDD as a kid. I mean, from probably 12 years old up until like well into high school, I'd mess around with it because it was a free software that you could use that had the full catalog of every single Lego brick or piece that was ever created. And you could just make whatever you wanted. And then if you wanted to, you could order the pieces that you created directly from Lego and have it shipped so that you could have your own custom Lego set that you made.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I used it all the time. I never ended up using it to order things, but just kind of like similar to Minecraft, just kind of like a playground to do whatever you can think of. So anywho, that's all I have for production details. So without further ado, Em, would you like to rate this movie first, or do you want me to?
I want you to.
Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 100, I would rate this movie as a 93.
Okay.
So I do think that this is a super solid movie. I love this movie, one of my favorite movies. I don't know that I have really any complaints. Trying to be a little tough on my grading though. Want to leave room on the scale.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just a phenomenal movie. I don't have complaints. I don't think there's things that they could have done better. You know what? I'm going to go up to a 94.
Really?
I'm going to give it a 94 because this is a phenomenal movie. There's a really strong message. What I would say is a really important message.
Mm-hmm.
And I never feel like this movie is lacking. The comedy is on point. The animation looks fantastic. It's a movie that I can sit down with and watch with, my dad or my grandma or my, 2-year-old nephew, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the room is going to laugh. Nobody's going to feel like begrudgingly to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I think I'm going to give it a 92. Because I agree it is really good. And I also like that you brought up the point just that, really anybody can watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
The only critique, and you can get mad at me for saying this,
Okay.
it's just some of the humor is just, a little cheesy in my opinion.
Such as, if you're
I
going to
can't
critique.
think-
No. If you're going to critique, you got to give me an example.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So I'll revoke what I said.
I will say on that note, I think I can understand where you're coming from with that critique because I think there are some gags or jokes that are maybe a little corny, but I feel like anytime that's used in the movie, it's used as like a satirical joke. It's not intentionally.
Like it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah, they're like making fun of that character who's
Right.
doing that or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I have I think like a unique sense of humor. Like I'll think some really stupid things are funny, and then
Yes.
some stupid things I will be like, why are you laughing? That's not funny.
Right.
So it's just kind of hard. Like I'm picky, I guess, with comedy things. That's why I don't like comedies. Movies are not like my favorite genre just because of that. Just because usually when I hear comedy, I'm like, oh great, it's gonna be this really cheesy like movie that I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
But I did think of an example.
Okay.
I can't think of like a specific thing that she says, but the Unikitty
Yes.
kind of drives me up a wall sometimes.
Well,
Like-
and I can totally understand that criticism, and I would argue that she's supposed to.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be this like obnoxious character who is like exuberant with positivity
Yeah.
and just this unattainable level of like energy and positivity that's like otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
So I can totally understand the how that's like off-putting.
Yeah.
However, I do think they use that like character trait very creatively.
Mm-hmm.
For like she's a very minor character in the movie,
Right. Yeah.
honestly, but
Mhm.
they use that character trait really well for character development for her.
Yeah.
Like when she's in the submarine, all those characters are in the submarine, like Emmett's
Mhm.
group,
Yeah.
and her home basically falls out of the sky and it's like burning and like falling apart and everything. And you see her like you've never seen her before up to that point in the film. She just loses it and starts
Mhm.
crying. And it's like, okay, so there is more depth here. She is a real creature, I guess, with emotions and feelings, and she's not going to just be positive, even though she tried to push herself through that.
Right.
And I think that it's a really good team behind it that was able to use something that is annoying, because I will agree. I'm not going to deny that she's, at times off-putting. However, I think they really leveraged that in a creative way. And
Mhm.
also, I promise you that like some of our 6-year-old nieces, 8-year, whatever, like those younger girls think she's hilarious.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So what are some of your favorite scenes, John?
Ooh, that is a tough one. If I'm going to be honest, I would probably say like the whole opening sequence where we're just kind of like in Emmett's life. I love obviously like the Everything is Awesome song is phenomenal, and it gets stuck in my head for a week every time I watch the movie. But just seeing kind of like the spectacle of the Lego city fully alive, Emmett going and doing stuff within the city, and especially like when he's on the construction site, I love just seeing it, because for me, I've played with Legos since I was, little. Literally as long as I can remember, there's been Legos in the house, and I've loved them. And, being a boy, one of the things I really loved as a young kid was like, there was this one line of Legos that was called Power Miners. So they were these really big, like construction equipment, mining vehicles that you could play with, and like the goal was to like get crystals and protect the miners from these like rock monsters that also wanted the crystals. But anywho, like that was one of my favorite sets. I loved that just because I'm a really creative guy in terms of like, I love to build. I'm a woodworker and stuff like that. So I think I naturally kind of gravitate towards construction, as well as the fact that like I kind of grew up around it. My dad worked in that field for over 30 years. So I've always liked backhoes and stuff like that. So anyways, getting back on track, I just love seeing that sequence, because for me, building a Lego city has always been a dream. I have loads of Legos, loads of Lego minifigures, and I've always wanted to have a setup similar to what Will Ferrell's character has in his basement, where you just have this table and you make a literal city just because it's cool.
Yeah.
It's fun, and it's I love being able to express my creativity by creating. I think that's very fun. So I love seeing that. I think I also would say that there are a lot of scenes that I really like throughout the movie. I think there's some really, really good comedic scenes, like when Emmett first meets Vitruvius, and like they go inside Emmett's mind. Like the back and forth between Vitruvius and Wildstyle and Emmett is hilarious. I love that. And especially like when they're in the saloon in the Wild West for the first time, and like Emmett acts like a stool. Like it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I would say really my only other favorite scene that comes to mind is the very end of the movie, when Emmett gets put back in the Lego world, and he's talking to Lord Business, and Will Ferrell's real life character says to his son, once he kind of realizes the story and that, maybe he's been a little overbearing to his son, or not letting him play with him, I guess. He says, if Emmett was talking to Lord Business, what would he say? And then it cuts back to Emmett actually saying to Lord Business, and you get this really amazing message that I think is really important for our world today. And I think that it's really important for people to internalize and apply in their lives, which is that you are important. Like Emmett gives this whole dialogue about it's never too late to turn around your life. If you've made mistakes, like don't write yourself off. There is hope for your future, and that you are an important person, that you are special. I think that it's incredibly important. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes that dialogue and that message can get tangled into politics, where people are like, oh, I'm so sick of people saying that like everybody's a winner and everybody gets like a participation trophy. And like, that's not me. Like, I am not the person who's in support of everybody getting a participation trophy. There are winners and there are losers. And I think stakes should be real and it should stay that way. However, that does not invalidate the value of people and their lives and their uniqueness. Every single person is a unique creature who's been created with a purpose.
Right.
And to deny yourself the idea that you are not special or important to write yourself off in that way. Or, if you've been challenged in life and you've made some bad choices, or, maybe you had a rough upbringing, that doesn't mean that that's all that your future is ever going to be. I think that's really, really cool, and it hits home. I think it's important for kids to hear that, and it's equally as important for adults to hear that too.
Yeah, I agree. Well said.
Thank you. What are some of your favorite scenes?
I agree. I really like the scenes at the beginning, just, like giving us a glimpse into just what the world of Lego is and Emmett's life and that kind of thing. I also absolutely love the ending when Will Ferrell, like when he's the dad, not Lord Business,
right,
is telling his son, now that I'm letting you play with these Legos, I have to let your sister play.
Yeah.
And then it shows like the little sister's Lego creations, and it's like,
well, and they're the Duplo bricks, which for those of you who don't know, Duplo is like the baby
bigger version of Legos.
Right. Yeah.
They're
They're the baby line. Like they're designed
Yeah.
for kids with like choking hazards in mind and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is also hilarious.
Yeah. So I just love that. I can't remember exactly what she says, but like the creatures she makes is literally like just Lego bricks, like just stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, with like eyes on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, we come from the planet Duplo and we're here to destroy you.
Yeah. I love it.
And it's in
so
this
funny.
like little baby kid voice,
Yeah.
which is so cute.
So funny. I also really like the good cop, bad cop guy.
Oh
and,
yeah,
like,
who's voiced by Liam Neeson, which is great.
Really? I didn't
Yeah.
put that together. I love good cop. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah. Hey, mom. Like,
Yeah.
It's so funny.
And I agree. I really like the scene, like, that when the little boy, I don't know if the little boy has a name.
I'm sure
That's
he
given.
does, but I don't remember.
Yeah. But I do like when he's like telling his dad what Emmett would be saying to Lord Business. I do like that.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. There's a lot of funny parts that I get a laugh out of, but I can't really think of any others off the top of my head that really stuck out. But I'd say those ones for sure are ones that I really enjoy. So,
And Will Arnett's portrayal of Batman is hilarious too.
That's one I wanted to say.
So great. Just because, like, I mean, if nothing else, he did such a good job that he got his own spin-off Lego Batman movie.
Yeah.
Which is equally as hilarious. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't.
Oh
no.
my gosh, we got to watch it, and maybe like in season 3 or something we can cover it, because we've got most of season 2 planned out already, but it is so funny.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, he does a great job.
Yeah, so that's another scene that I really liked, and I mean, it's been years since I've seen this movie. Before we watched it just recently for the podcast.
Did you see it in theaters?
Yes, I did.
Nice.
But I really love, and I hadn't picked up on this the last time I watched it. I don't know why, but I love when Emmett and Wildstyle and Batman are in his Batmobile, and he starts playing the song that he wrote for Wildstyle, and it is like absolutely ridiculous. Like it's like heavy metal, like.
Well, and he says before he starts playing it, he's like, it's about being an orphan, which is so off the wall.
And it's crazy because I think Wildstyle says that Batman wrote that song for her, and it's like, why would you write a song for your girlfriend about you being an orphan?
Right. The lyrics are literally like, darkness, no parents. It's so off the wall, but it's so funny.
Yeah, that's a really good scene too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all that I can think of right now.
Okay, awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want to touch on?
I don't think so. Should I close us out?
I think so. I don't think there's anything else that I've got.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening. Like John said at the beginning, if you haven't chosen not to like the video, please do it now. And also, next week, we're really excited because we're going to be covering Inception, and we're going to have a special guest on with us. So look forward to that. Sadly, Inception is not streaming anywhere for free right now, so you have to either rent or buy it, but it's worth it. It's a really good movie. Christopher Nolan again, one of my faves. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.